Hi, it's Dr. Yopp, your favorite grief recovery method specialist, certified by the Grief Recovery Institute. Welcome to this week's episode of Takeaways About Grief. In previous episodes, we've learned of several myths about grief. We've learned about the definition of grief, different types of losses. We've discussed apologizing and forgiving, incompleteness, and short term energy releasing behaviors. This week, we'll focus on the key to grief recovery. Let's have a quick chat about grief. All of the topics we've touched on in the past episodes and the skills I teach during my 7-week online grief recovery method sessions are essential to recovering from your grief experiences. But the fundamental component of grief recovery is truth, total emotional honesty to ourselves, about ourselves, in relation to others. Now, remember, grieving is not just about loss of relationship with a loved one. It is also about relationships with not so loved ones. And though some relationships are more loving and more complete than others, we all have some undelivered emotional communications. The challenge in being truthful and completely emotionally honest comes from our fear or unwillingness to look within and honestly admit our own part in what and why things have been unfinished in relationships. The other challenging part comes from believing that sharing our honest feelings could hurt the memory of someone who has died. So, what happens when we are not truthful about our relations to others with regard to recovering from loss? Simply, recovery cannot happen. Remember, we talked about bedevilment and enshrinement. You will remember that focusing only on the negative or only on the positive prevents us from making a balanced and honest evaluation of unfinished business in our relationships, prevents us from discovering our share of responsibility. And here's a personal example. When my late husband died, I was so angry and resentful because of events over the decades of our marriage that led to the broken relationship prior to his death. In all truthfulness, I had bedeviled him. But when he died, I took part in the misinformation of not speaking ill of the dead. So instead of honestly evaluating my feelings about my loss of relationship and granting myself permission to express those feelings, I put on my Academy Award winning smile and listened to all the wonderful things everyone had to say about him, like any grieving widow is expected to do. It wasn't until about 7 months later, when I was introduced to the grief recovery method, that I realized that the unfinished emotional communications between Stacy and I were not all only because of him. I too had a part in what I wish had ended between us differently, better, or what I wish I had said or had not said. My grief recovery started the moment I began to express my truth without the shades of bedevilment hindering my honesty. Truth, 100% emotional honesty to yourself, if no one else, is the key to your grief recovery. Ready to invest in your emotional health? Text me at 813-324-4474 for a free consultation or to get started with online one-on-one grief recovery sessions.